possible for us to uplift the profession of network marketing simply by changing the language that we use, the way we explain it and speak about it? We're going to talk about that with my special guest in today's episode. Stay tuned. Welcome, everybody. And like I mentioned, I have a special guest on for today's show where we're going to talk about the language of network marketing and how this might be disruptive to your process of explaining exactly what it is that we do, what they might be doing to business professionals who come from a different environment and a different set of linguistics, so to speak. So please help me welcome Marie Benoit, who's a native of Louisiana. She now lives in Northern Virginia and has for the last 33 years, splitting her time because she gets to winter down in lovely Florida. She's a former tenured college professor turned entrepreneur, and she owned her own business in Northern Virginia since 1987, owned both a successful seminar company and a successful management training company. She has a very interesting story about why she ultimately chose the profession of network marketing, what it was that intrigued her, and kind of her introduction, as well as some confusion along the way. So, Marie, welcome.
Thank you, Jackie. Happy to be here.
It's so nice to have you here. All right, so let's just get right into it. Tell us a little bit of your background and specifically your background for sure, and then specifically a little more about your initial exposure, for lack of a better word, education process for learning about network marketing.
Sure. So I started off my career as a university professor. I taught business communications for 10 years at a university in Louisiana. And during that 10-year period, I went to graduate school, got my doctorate. And after that, area companies began to ask me to come in and do workshops for their employees. And I thought, wow, I'd never even thought about doing that. So I said, sure. Like, when I was young, I just would always say sure and then figure it out before I had to do it. So what I really realized is, for me, it was a lot more personally rewarding to work with working adults than it was to be in the college classroom. So after 10 years, as you mentioned, I quit my tenured associate professorship to go into business for myself. That was in Louisiana. But the next year, the economy tanked, and I literally opened up a map and said, where would you like to go? And I'm a small town Louisiana girl, rural girl. I'd never been anywhere but Texas, where I went to graduate school. I had been to DC once for a teacher's conference. And so when I opened up that map, I thought, you know what? The government needs my training. I'm going to move to the DC area. And so I literally borrowed $15,000 from my dad and moved to Northern Virginia in August of '87. Started picking up the phone, making cold calls, and had paid him back by December. So I was determined, to say the least. I never did work for the government. I started trying to meet with the government. I would, get very favorable responses, but whoever I was talking to always said, well, you need to speak to this person, who said, you need to speak to this person, who said, you need to speak to this person. And I thought, you know what? I've got to eat. I can't just keep meeting with people. And what I truly understood is that if I could meet with the president, owner, or CEO of a company, that person could make a decision. And so that's really how I built my business, working with private companies. After 20 years, in November of 2005, I sold that business. And that's when we bought a home in Florida. And we've been snowbirds now for 15 years. So I retired at that point for almost 7 years, and then stumbled across a company that, first of all, just had a product that was interesting to me. I saw it on a table somewhere at a meeting, and it was very interesting. So I looked up the information and just enrolled myself without talking to anyone. So, and that's one question I often get is, how often were you approached about a network marketing opportunity? And never. No one ever spoke with me about network marketing. It was just not a part of my world. So I knew nothing at all about network marketing except that it existed. I knew that Mary Kay Cosmetics was a network marketing company. And they sold cosmetics. That's basically what I knew. But this particular product was kind of intriguing. As I said, I thought it was really good. I looked it up and I became a distributor of this company. And that's when I really began to study network marketing. And I realized that I really didn't know anything. I thought they were selling products. And then I learned that there are really two opportunities or two things that you're selling in network marketing. One, the product or service, and two, the business opportunity. That was a surprise to me. I had no idea. So I don't know how much you want me to keep talking at this point. So stop me, please.
Well, so when you say you knew that it existed, so you knew Mary Kay existed, did you know that Mary Kay also paid you to recruit, so to speak? Did you know that they paid you on building a team?
I don't think I don't. I honestly don't. I knew that there were lots of reps. But I guess I thought, and this has been, 12 or so years ago now, that people did what I did. They looked up the company and then they became a rep to sell the product. I didn't realize you were building a team or they were building a team.
Okay, so then you started researching because you figured out from researching the company that there was this whole other piece to it. There was the business opportunity, to use a phrase that we use a lot, associated with it, so you could make money beyond just selling the products. So tell us a little bit about the research that you began to do to educate yourself on this business system.
Well, I am someone who typically doesn't make a decision without doing lots of research. And so research is what I did. I read every book I could find on network marketing. I started searching for seminars, or I guess we didn't have Zooms back then, but telesummits, whatever I could find where people who were in the network marketing profession were speaking. I guess what really, the thing that really turned me on was when I found, and now I'm not going to remember the name. I forgot. I didn't look that up before this interview, but Dr. Charles
King.
There you go. Dr. Charles King, who was the head of the Department of Marketing at the University of
Illinois, I think.
In Chicago, right. So so that spoke to me because he was a college professor and that was my background. And so what I learned was that he, back around the year 2000, had started a certificate program in the profession of network marketing because, recruiters were coming to the university to hire their graduates and there were no jobs. And here he is the head of marketing and he figured he needed to do something. And I remember reading that a graduate student of his said something about, what about network marketing? And he said, he just totally X'd it out. He said, I know enough about network marketing to know that it's absolutely something I would never recommend to my students. And the graduate student said, well, what exactly do you know? If that was the response that I gave on a test, you would fail me. And that's when he came to the realization that, yeah, you're absolutely right. I don't know enough to make that statement that I just made. So anyway, I learned about the research that they did. And as a result of that research, he and some graduate students, they decided to create a certification program because he was so sold on the business model of network marketing. And so that was a real eye-opener for me. I learned that there were other universities that were beginning to teach network marketing. And that's when I began to think, wow, what have I been missing? Where have I been? Why don't I know anything about this? So I began to educate myself. And it's an amazing business model. It was something that, everything I've usually in my past, what I've heard about, I've wanted to conquer, if you will. And network marketing is not something I'd ever attempted to conquer. So that's what I wanted to do as soon as I knew about it.
And I love that about you, as you and I have chatted about before, and possibly some of the listeners will have heard of that conversation. But it's so funny. We talk about people who either get involved, which is one of the terms that we're going to discuss, but they join, that's another one, a network marketing company based on a product experience or based on a desired income experience. And occasionally, well, it's time freedom too, but typically it's one of the two that first create the interest in someone. And that is not your case at all. So tell us what it was that intrigued you to forge your path in network marketing.
Well, it's just like I said, I've always thrived on accomplishment. And it was something that I had never accomplished. It was, it was just something new to strive for. I loved, reading about families who's, were like maybe third generation network marketers, and the wealth that the families had been able to create because of the business model. I mean, the whole concept of selling something, spending your time to sell something once and then to be paid on it over and over and over and over and over again in itself was intriguing. Now, the only thing I knew about, I guess at that time, that enabled you to do what I just said, get paid over and over again, was insurance. And I knew that merchant processing, credit card merchant processing people got a commission on, every credit card that was run through a machine if they had that account. Other than that, I don't think I knew of anything else. But this was that on steroids, because now you could actually, get paid over and over again on anyone you had introduced to that product or service. But you could introduce others who wanted to do the same thing. They had their own business, and their business was a subset of your business, which means you're getting a piece of whatever it is that they produce. And it doesn't stop with them. It goes on to another level, another level. That was just fascinating to me. I absolutely loved it. So yes, to me, there was nothing not to like about the model.
Yes, those circles, as we call them, where you can see get three, who get three, who get three, which we know that's theory, doesn't work out that way. But ultimately, as you expand, it kind of shapes into that. It's intoxicating. It really, truly is, because when you look at the potential of that and you think, where else in the world could I create something like that? So why do you think it is then that insurance is respected as a profession that pays you a residual income, and merchant account credit card processing is respected as a profession that somebody would be affiliated with? So what's the stigma then with network marketing? Why does that business model not just click in the minds of everyone who sees it?
Well, I wish I had all of the answers. I can only, I guess, because of my background in communications, this is my theory. I think that a lot of the terminology that is used in the network marketing profession is not conducive to business-minded people. It's not business language. The term you mentioned a little while ago, and I hear it over and over and over and over again, and it's just, my best way of describing it, it's like, nails on a chalkboard. It just really grates on me. And one of those terms is involved in. When I began to be around people who are in the network marketing profession, I heard that over and over again. I still hear it. How long have you been involved in network marketing? And that just struck me as such an odd phrase, involved in. That made me feel like it was criminal activity or something. How long have you been involved in dealing drugs? I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I honestly have never really heard anyone else say that this language bothers them. When they have heard me talk about it, I've had people agree with me, but I've never really heard anyone bring this up other than myself. So that's why I have to say maybe it's just me. I don't know. But that always struck me as just such an odd phrase to use. And it's certainly not a phrase that I've ever heard used in business. And while I never literally worked for a corporation as an employee, because I haven't been an employee since 1985 when I was teaching for a university, I worked, did training for tons of companies, as a kind of a freelance person. They hired me to come in and do training for them, not as an employee. But the point being, I was around companies all the time, around their lingo, and never did I hear someone talk about, how long have you been involved in pharmaceutical drugs? Or how long have you, it's just not a phrase that's used. Another phrase that just I absolutely couldn't wrap my head around is join my business. Okay, so one of the things as a professional network marketer you are to do is create a team. You're to find people, in my mind, business-minded people like yourself who want to grow a network marketing business. Join my business is not a phrase that makes sense to me. To me, join is something, you would join a club. You might, join a membership of something, join the Boy Scouts, join the Girl Scouts, but join my business just never made sense to me. And I just don't think that's terminology that speaks to a business person. So that was another one. And I had three. I had three of my pet peeves. The last one was does. When you're in a group of people, maybe a networking event, you hear people say, "Oh, she does Mary Kay," and Mary does Rodan and Fields, and John does whatever. But whenever it's a network marketing company, you've got that verb. He does whatever that company is. And when you stop and think about it, if someone owns a Burger King franchise, do you ever hear someone say, "Oh, he does Burger King"? So my feeling at least is one of the reasons that we, meaning people in the network marketing profession, are not attracting as many people with business backgrounds who are looking for a business is because we're not using the terminology that speaks to them.
Yeah, very good. So do you have an idea of language that you would replace that with? I know some of it's obvious. It's like, well, she sells insurance and not she's in insurance or does insurance or anything like that. So if you have a few ideas, that would be great.
Well, I just think, just the last example, instead of she does Mary Kay, she is a Mary Kay consultant. She is a representative of Mary Kay Cosmetics. That terminology makes sense to me coming from business. It's just, I don't know where that comes from. She does whatever, she does Juice Plus. I don't know. I just don't get that.
I know. And I hear it a lot too.
Yeah. And I'll tell you a couple of examples I've just kind of stumbled upon over the last year or so. I just happen to know that Juice Plus is a network marketing company. I have a Tower Garden sitting right next to me. I'm an avid fan of Tower Gardens, and that's a Juice Plus, part of the Juice Plus company. What I've learned is if you go to a networking event where people are all introducing themselves and their businesses, when you hear someone from Juice Plus speak, their terminology is, "I own a virtual franchise with Juice Plus." And I think that's rather interesting. See, that to me speaks to a business person.
Yeah.
The other one, I don't know why, but lately on LinkedIn, I'm getting all of these notifications about various jobs that are open that I would fit, the description of. And I don't know if others are getting that. I wasn't getting that up until recently. Yeah. So somehow I'm on various mailing lists, and I got an email, I don't know, within the last 6 months or so from Farmers Insurance, a recruiting email. And they call their opportunity a virtual business ownership, a VBO, virtual business ownership. So I think everybody probably is looking for different ways to attract, business people for a franchise. I definitely believe that network marketing companies want business-minded people within their company. I just think that for some, if we just change some of the terminology, we would be speaking to those business people. And we're just not doing that now. I think it's really sad when this is such a great opportunity for the reasons that we've already talked about. But usually when someone who is ready to leave corporate America, for whatever reason, they're ready to retire or they've just had it, and they've decided that they want to start their own business, be their own boss. Usually what happens is they start thinking about a business that they could start from scratch, or they start to look for a business that is established that they could purchase, or they start to look at franchises. I don't hear them starting to look at various network marketing opportunities, which I think is sad if they just knew about network marketing. But it's generally speaking not something that they're going to be searching out because they just don't know about it. They think about, I believe, network marketing as something that is maybe just something you do on the side. And for a lot of people it is. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can have a side business for sure. But I don't think they think about network marketing as a business, just in very large part because of the way people speak about network marketing.
I think you're right. And I think there's huge power in posture. We hear that term bantered around a lot. And I know back in the early days when I used to hear that, it kind of was a turnoff to me because I kind of put it in the same category as arrogant. And now I realize it's not that at all. More than anything, it's confidence, it's conviction, and it's positioning yourself with authority about something that you know something about and that you want to position out there to create interest, to create questions so that you can further the conversation. And, I think that's a big part of it too. I mean, certainly there are those people who don't pursue network marketing as that next phase in their life because of the negativity. They've been exposed in some way that was a turnoff. They've heard something or all those type things. But I think that we've talked about this. I mean, I've been in the profession 27 years, and this has been talked about, since I've been part of the profession, and certainly it was before. And that is, raising up the standard, raising up the, getting rid of that stigma and creating more of a professional environment so that more people do say, I'm ready for a next phase in my life. And I think network marketing sounds like a great business model. I'm ready and open to exploring, finding the company, the product line within that model that's going to be a fit for me.
When I think about posturing, what I think about is someone who is really comfortable in their own skin, very clear that this is their business, and very clear that not everyone that you introduce your business to is going to buy from you. I think too often what happens with network marketing is in part because one of the first things you're typically told is make a list of all your friends and family. And for a lot of people, they make that list, perhaps, maybe they do, maybe they don't, but they talk to the handful of people that they feel comfortable talking to. And because they haven't really been trained, they haven't truly made a decision that this is a business and that I am in the business for the long haul, they are affected by the response of those 5 or 6 people that they've talked to. And because they didn't know what they were doing to begin with, they hadn't already decided that this is a business and what have you, because of the response of those 5 or 6 people, they're still trying to decide whether they're going to continue to do this. And so to me, there's so much difference when I say posturing, when you said posturing, there's so much difference in those 2 examples I just gave. When you're in business, you can go through 15 people who are not interested in what you're doing, and that's not going to stop you. You keep doing what you have to do. But I just don't think for the most part there's enough training when someone gets started in the network marketing profession before they're out there talking to people. And that ends up turning people off, those people off. And now they feel like, well, I don't know anyone else to talk to. So they give up.
What do you think? And I know we've talked about this before, and I started my first network marketing endeavor in January of 94. I took my business online in 99. And honestly, part of the reason I took it online is because I did not want to deal with warm market anymore. I'm just going to really put it out there. I did not want to deal with warm market anymore. You grow up your whole life hearing, never do business with family and friends. Never do business with family and friends. Don't loan them money. Don't do this. Don't borrow, on and on. And then, of course, we start our network marketing business. And that's the first thing that we're taught, is to make a list of everyone we know and to start with those closest to us, because they're our center of influence. And I don't necessarily know that that's true. And I'm not here to upset the apple cart and say that is completely wrong, because honestly, I wouldn't be here today having this conversation had we not talked to our family and friends in the beginning, and in month number 4 found one who said yes, raised her hand, and got busy. And that was a very warm market. It was one of my husband's best friends. It was his wife, but wouldn't be here today if it weren't for that. Yet at the same time, I wonder what your thoughts are on potentially positioning that a different way. Yes, make a list of everyone you know, but let's sort that list. I don't want to say edit that list, but let's sort that list, because your family and friends can be the worst. They can be the ones that are the deal breaker for you. I was very fortunate in that my entire family, and Mark's as well, were supportive of us. Not everybody joined us. Not everybody launched their own business with us or used the products or services, but everybody was supportive. And so we didn't have that whole negative. I mean, I had negative neighbors. Everybody's heard me talk about Mean Janine and some of that stuff. But in terms of the people really close to me that I was going to see every year at the holidays and, have that ongoing thing with, we didn't have. So what are your thoughts on that? Like making that list and saying, who are those business-minded individuals that potentially that are interested in opportunity and income and, expansion and growth and all of that. And of course, teaching that good positioning language. What do you think?
Honestly, I've always stayed away from friends and family. Most everything I've ever done has been, in front of a group of people training, and no one in my family had a business that would be hiring me to speak. Where network marketing is concerned, I still stayed away from friends and family. I didn't not tell them what I was doing, but I wanted them to know what I'm doing. But it was never the same kind of conversation that I might have with someone that I thought was business minded and should know about this particular opportunity. Maybe that's just me. I don't know, but I don't think I ever wanted to be in business with any of my brothers. it's just kind of a weird thing. I remember at one point, two of my brothers got together and owned a service station together, and I thought, oh dear, this is not going to be good for family relations. I always felt like if I was in business with them, I would have to be the boss. And when you come from South Louisiana, the woman is never the boss. It's always got to be a man. So anyway, I never thought any of that would work. And so in answer to your question, I've just always stayed away from that. I would much rather speak to a room full of strangers, people I've never ever met before, than have anybody in the room that I know.
And so how did you go about getting your first, and I'm using language again that I don't care for, but sharing the products, sharing the opportunity? How did you launch your business?
Picked out a handful of people that I knew from business that I thought would at least want to know about this. I mean, I could see them being really good in this type of business. I didn't know how much they knew about it, like I didn't, and introduced it really to a handful of people who, I don't know if it's the right terminology, but people that I had influence with, if you will, who respected my views and my teachings, etc., and they came on board, and that's how I got started.
What was your experience in terms of the negativity of network marketing that's out there, the reputation that's out there for some, in working with these business professionals who you did have and do have some influence over, who respected you? Anything about those experiences to share?
I really haven't encountered negativity. If people are negative about it, they haven't said it to me. I haven't. I had no positive or negative feelings whatsoever personally when I started looking into network marketing. It just wasn't my world, and I knew I didn't know enough. I knew I needed to educate myself, and of course, as I became more and more educated, I got more and more excited about the whole business model. I don't think I've encountered someone who's said anything negative, certainly to my face. If they have, or if they've said they're not interested, it just doesn't bother me. I don't even remember that. I've just been in business so long. That's just business. It matters not. I mean, I know what I'm going to do regardless of what anybody else says to me. So it doesn't matter. I don't remember it. It doesn't stay with me. If it's if what I have is not for them, I'm fine with that.
So you're not looking for any outside validation.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
How have you worked with people who do struggle with that?
I think the struggle more so that I've encountered with my team members more so has been about spouses that have not been supportive. It's not so much when they are sharing the product or service with someone and experience negativity. It's the lack of spousal support. And to me, the only cure for that, or certainly a big cure for that, is start making some money, and the spouse will pay attention. And that's how, I guess with two of the people who were, really close team members of mine, they had to deal with that initially, and then it went away as soon as they started making some money.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
I know a couple of the other phrases that are like, for me, nails on a chalkboard, and I hear all the time. Just, tell me how to get people interested, how to get them. Let's get them. How do we get people? How do we get people to see this? How do we get them to do all that? And I always think, I don't want to be gotten. Is that a word? I don't know. Like, what do you mean? How do you get them? Do you want to get them to, go skydiving if they're not interested in skydiving? Like, what does that mean? Do you hear that word?
I do. And that's another one for sure. It's like someone enrolled someone on their team, And everybody's going, oh my gosh, how did you get her? So yeah, that bothers me as well. It
Then
does.
another one that comes to mind is, how do I convince them? How do I convince people to see what I see? And it's kind of the same thing. It's like everybody's on their own timeline of everything, of, success, interest, phase in their life, personal things that are going on, all the rest of it. And that kind of brought me around when you were talking about the unsupportive spouse. I had a thought. Now it just left me again that I wanted to come back around to with that. And it wasn't the making money. Well, we'll keep going. I know it'll come back, and I've got my paper here and I'll write it down.
So I wanted to just go over, if this fits for you, for anybody who does encounter someone who's looking for a business, who's out there looking for a franchise. I think it's really important for us to understand, us being in network marketing, to understand what the difference is between network marketing and purchasing a franchise. Because I've purchased franchises. When you own a franchise and you sell something, and I'll use training as an example, I owned a training franchise. I could go out and sell a $20,000 training job, which I was going to have to deliver the training, and happy to do so. I loved what I did. But that meant I now owed the franchisor 35.5% of that $20,000. And when you are in network marketing and you sell your product or service to someone, you don't owe the network marketing company that you are representing a royalty. They pay you. And I think that's a huge difference.
Very big. Yes.
Yeah. I don't think people who have not had a franchise really know that or understand that. And to me, that's a huge distinction. Something else is, typically when you own a franchise, you have a certain territory that is yours to be able to sell within. When you are in network marketing, you don't have a territory. You could sell all over the US, and depending upon where your company is located, but you're not limited to a 2 square miles around where you live, like you would be with many franchises. Think about maybe a State Farm office. I don't think they necessarily call them a franchise, but they own the rights to sell State Farm insurance within a certain block radius of where that office is. And what happens is, a few blocks down the street, there's another State Farm office there. And that State Farm office is your competition. With network marketing, you might have other people in your area who represent your company. Usually, if you're out there working your business, most of those people who are within your geographic area are part of your team. And so when they're out there selling, they're not your competition. Everything that they do, everything that they earn is part of your business. So to me, that's another just huge distinction that I'm not sure people realize. And that would certainly make a difference if I had understood these things, if I had known these things before I bought a franchise.
Yeah. And, it's when you look at it from like a risk perspective, cost, what you're spending, all of that. I mean, there's definitely a bunch more benefits from the network marketing business model, because we also know that you have the potential to earn far more with a network marketing business than with a franchise. And in fact, McDonald's even tells you to really build the kind of income that's off the charts, gangster income, as I like to call it. I don't think that's what they call it in franchising. You're going to need more than one franchise. That's not going to happen for you with just one franchise. You're looking at 4 to 6, and sometimes it's in the same geographic region, and sometimes it's not, because especially probably with McDonald's these days, because it's so old and established, unless you buy an existing one, it could be all around the country, even around the globe with some of this type thing.
Yeah, so most of the food franchises, you're not limited to a certain geographic area, but you're absolutely right. It's almost like when you're buying a franchise for many franchises, you're literally buying yourself a job. It's not going to operate without you. Um, and you're right that you're limited by how much time you can put into it. And for so many of them, like food franchises, you've got lots of you know low income, what entry level employees that you're having to deal with ongoing. It's hard to find people, hourly people, who are going to stick with you after you've taken all the time to train them, and they don't come in and now you're filling in their job. I don't know who really wants to do that kind of business. Obviously there are people who do. That's just not my idea of an ideal business, for sure.
Right. So, what would be some parting, just to kind of wrap it up and summarize, just kind of a quick training piece for new and older professionals, or by older, I mean people who are more seasoned, have been with the network marketing profession for a while. What are some kind of summary of good language?
Summary of good language. I would just avoid those phrases that we talked about. Avoid saying involved in, for sure. How long have you been a professional network marketer or a network marketing professional is a whole lot better than saying how long have you been involved in network marketing. So just, kind of rework some of the wording. I would never be asking people to join my business. That's just not a phrase that is business-like, if you will. And I would get away from he does a certain company name. He does Pampered Chef. He is a representative of Pampered Chef. He is a consultant with Pampered Chef. That kind of wording, I think, is much more professional and sounds much more like it's coming from a seasoned business person. So part of it, I guess, Jackie, is becoming a seasoned business person, realizing that you own a business. When you become a representative of a network marketing company, really and truly what you have is a license to represent that company. And whatever it is that your title is, whatever your company calls you, a distributor, a consultant, a representative, you have a license to represent them. And you are in essence a business broker, if you will, because you are selling a business as well as a product or service. And so when you're out there meeting with people, business people, to sell or at least present to them that you have a business to sell, you need to speak business, you need to use business language. And certainly, would you join my business is not a term I would ever use with someone who is contemplating leaving corporate America to start their own business.
And I realize I'm putting you on the spot here, but do you have maybe a sentence or two that you would use to open the conversation to see if there's an interest in going further, to have a look, take a look, explore what it is that you offer and do?
Well, I think it's a great question is, have you ever thought about owning your own business? Because most employees, I shouldn't say most, but many employees have always just worked for someone else. They haven't really thought about owning their own business. I think a lot of times people might have thought about, what it would be like to not have to report in to someone or, report to someone. But really and truly, owning your own business is not something a lot of people have thought about. And, so if the answer is no, I really have never thought about that. My next question is, I wonder why. I mean, what do you think business ownership would be like? And just, it's just a conversation. You're just asking questions and trying to get to the root of why someone would not have thought about it. And you might find out by asking questions that they are a really good candidate if they just understood a little bit more about what that means.
Yeah. And again, it's not trying to convince them. It's simply asking questions and having a conversation that very often can be a not now, but it can open a door to bring that conversation back around at a later point. And that's powerful too.
Jackie, you just reminded me of something, and I know in this particular situation who the person is, but I've heard kind of the same story a number of times in the last 10 or 12 years where someone introduced a service to someone who was not interested in this service. And then 6 months later, that person who introduced the service sees that this person is now a part of their company. And they go to him and say, why did you join with this person and you didn't join with me? And the response is, I was never told about the business opportunity. I was interested in a business. You told me about a service. So you never know what people are looking for, what they're thinking about, unless you begin to have a conversation and ask questions. And you're absolutely right. It's not about trying to convince anyone of anything, but it is about exploring. It is about, trying to find out if you do, in fact, have something that could solve whatever it is that they are seeking. But you won't even know that they're seeking if you don't ask.
Well, and bringing it back around to the McDonald's and franchising analogy, I would be willing to bet a lot of money on the fact that very few, if any, McDonald's franchise owners pursued a franchise with McDonald's because they love the hamburgers or any of the food. They probably don't even eat it anymore.
I would have to agree with that.
Yeah. Saw the business potential and know that a lot of other people eat it every day. And so there's opportunity there.
Absolutely.
How do we find out more about you? Tell us a little bit about what people might expect to learn from you further and where they might do that.
Well, I would direct you to my website, www.wowyourcontacts.com. So wow, W-O-W, your contacts, plural.com. There you'll learn a little bit more about me and a little bit more about how I am assisting small to medium-sized businesses with growing their customer base.
Excellent. And I'll have that in the show notes too. So if anybody's driving, walking, doing dishes, handling kids, doing all the stuff that I typically do when listening to podcasts, you can click back to the show notes and find that. Marie, thank you so much for spending the time. Thanks for educating us from a business perspective, from a college professor's perspective, and, just really shifting the conversation and the thought process that I really believe if more people will pay attention to this, it's going to give them that posturing. It's going to give them that confidence to start having some of the conversations that potentially could lead them more quickly down the road to success. And that's ultimately what we're after.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jackie. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks.